I'd also like to express appreciation to Reverend Bill McCoy for his participation in the opening ceremonies of this town meeting. In addition, I'd like to recognize PAC TV, which is cable casting this annual town meeting live on Channel 15. We'd like to thank Erica Christensen, Kurt Knobloch, Justin Coonan, Jen Davis, also people who set up yesterday, Brooke Hoffman, David Antoine, Tom Bolus, and David Rodriguez. We'd also like to thank Joel Adele, who is working the controls here for the audio-visual during and throughout town meeting. This facility has been provided by the Plymouth School District, and we thank head custodian today, David Hallinan, the entire custodial staff of Plymouth North High School for the setup and cleaning. Thank you to Patrick Van Cott, Director of Food Services, who will be providing lunch for this annual town meeting. And a reminder, Plymouth Spring Townwide Cleanup takes place Saturday, April 30 at Plymouth Tradition, sponsored by the Network of Open Space Friends in the town of Plymouth. To find a group to join or register your own, contact Patrick Farah at Town Hall or go out on your own in your favorite green space or neighborhood. With all of us pitching in, we keep parks, conservation areas, beaches, village centers, and neighborhoods beautiful, a good way to nurture civic pride in our young people. Saturday, April 30. At this time, continue the debate on Article 8 and Robert Cunningham. Welcome, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Rob Cunningham, Precinct 8, down where sewer doesn't go. First of all, I think everyone commends the way the town has handled this problem in trying to solve what is actually catastrophic to a lot of folks in town. We're looking at a massive number, and I stand before you as someone who will tell you I will vote against any proposal as we go to funding that doesn't put the vast majority of that on the ratepayers of the system. However, if I understand correctly what we're looking at today, we're looking at something that, as a defender of the taxpayers, if I vote against, it puts the cost borne to date on the recap sheet that goes into our tax bill for next year. And thus we are faced with a no-win situation for those trying to protect the taxpayer. Vote for it and save it from the tax bill next year, but have the uncertainty of how we're going to fund this in the future, or vote against it and have it hit our tax bills with one more addition that Mr. Moody spoke about earlier today. So supporters will obviously vote for this proposal, and those who, like me, who wish to support the taxpayers and ensure that ratepayers pay the vast majority of the burden, if we vote against it, we're raising the taxes on the very people we're looking to protect. So if I'm wrong there, please someone correct me, but I feel like we've got Sophie's choice here. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
David Tarantino, to be followed by Stephen Lydon. Mr. Tarantino.
Dave Tarantino, Precinct 4. Jonathan or Melissa, can you clarify, if this isn't approved, how it would affect the bid process? Would it become an open bid instead of an invite only?
It's a question to Jonathan Beater, Director of Department of Public Works. Mr. Beater.
Yeah, thank you. The answer to that question is twofold. First of which, the first phase of the project would be the slip line and the removal of the bypass. In working with the state, we've received a waiver from advertising and bidding. We would do is have a competitive bid pricing with about half a dozen contractors to do the slip line portion of it. What we do at the same time is we would design with an engineer the new pipe and those connections, and then that would be a traditional bid and award, hopefully starting after Thanksgiving Day Parade and then coming up and working until the spring of 2017.
Okay, thank you. Can you give a brief assessment as well on the performance of C. Brito in the repair?
Yeah, absolutely. So C. Brito's been a very good contractor to work with on the emergency side. One of only, I think, a couple around this region that could do immediate mob and install the HDPE pipe. They had the fusion machines on site. They had the crews available. Craftsmanship, clean, safe. Everything went very well on our end, very quickly, which was important. Anything we pretty much needed, they were responsive to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephen Lydon, followed by Evelyn Strong. Mr. Lydon.
Steve Lydon, Precinct 12. I am on the septic. I live down in South Plymouth, and I do think this is a community issue. I think the whole town's, with the downtown and all the money raised downtown that goes to our meals tax, which is paying for our town hall and the other hotels that pay taxes that come into our city, into our town, also help keep our taxes low. The question I do have is, if we do not approve this today, which is only the authorization, it's not anything else but the authorization to borrow, are we still going to have those plastic pipes paying $300,000 a month? And how long will the DEP allow us to have that without being replaced? Thank you.
Anyone care to respond to a question from Stephen Lyden regarding the plastic pipes? Jonathan Beater, Director, Department of Public Works.
So the DEP and the EPA have both been involved since the first break. They have not commented at this time as far as the longevity of the bypasses. What I will say on our end is the extreme sensitivity with the bypass, and if you're driven by the pump station on Water Street, you see the pumps, the external pumps. We are extremely concerned with those. I can tell you at any time we could have a problem with that, and given the resources, the areas, and the environment along the bypass route, you know, if those were to fail, we'd have problems again. So that's why we're really, you know, asking you to push this for the location. It's a residential area. We are already receiving complaints in terms of odors. So from our perspective, we need to really move this along pretty quickly. As far as if there's no action today, I'd ask, you know, Melissa or Lynn to touch on that.
Melissa Arigi, Town Manager, for the responding. Have a mic check on my mic.
If
Thank
I can
you.
just respond a little further to that question. Until the 30-inch main is lined, those bypass pipes will be in place until we can get that up and running. In terms of what will happen if this article is voted down, the speaker that got up a few minutes ago really was clear, and he was correct in what could happen. We have to continue to pay this $300,000 a month. We have to keep the sewer working. So we would have to put additional costs onto the recap sheet. What that means is your end-of-year tax bill would have additional charge on it. Now, how much that amount would be, I'm not sure if we can determine that today. Lynn, would you be able to answer that? No. We would have to have a little time. Maybe that's something that we could determine.
Evelyn Strawn, followed by Everett Malaguti. She had a question answered. Everett Malaguti, followed by Robert Hollis.
Everett Malaguti, Precinct 1. I agree with a lot of the presenters and speakers tonight that this is a community issue, and rightfully so it is. A lot of the commercial tax base that's in the northern sector of the town is on sewer, and without that commercial tax base, the residential taxes would be exorbitant to the people that live here. Also, too, is that, yes, while the taxpayers in general have paid a subsidy over a few years to this, the ratepayers have paid the majority, but ratepayers are also taxpayers too, so it is double taxing that we pay for it with this. The issue of borrowing, which this is only for this article, is that we will not see anything on the tax rate based on Lynn's presentation for, I think it was 2 years into the future, when there's actually the principal that needs to be owed and a mechanism to fund it. I fully support this article, and I hope town meeting agrees with me. Thank you.
Robert Hollis, followed by Frank Collins.
Robert Hollis, Precinct 15. I agree with everything that's been said about the need for this project, but I own a business, and if I look at a project agreement to my business, no matter how good it is, I will never sign on the dotted line until I know how I'm going to pay for it. And that is the only reason I haven't voted no. I don't know how this is going to be paid for. I would rather see it come back perhaps to the fall town meeting, and even if we can come to a sharing agreement, at least we'll know going forward what we're going to be facing.
Frank Collins, followed by Megan Collins.
Precinct 6, that this simply authorizes the town to begin dealing with a town-wide disaster. If we're going to start the debate today about how the cost is going to be apportioned, town meeting will still be in session on Memorial Day.
Megan Dempsey Collins.
You can tell we're related. We're already, that was it.
Michael Babini.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, I'd like to thank JB and the administration for dealing with this event in a miraculous way. I really realize how difficult it was. You did the best you could under the circumstances. I'm really concerned about the fact that for us today without a way of paying for how it's going to be for the apportionment of the cost. Can someone please tell me why that is not the select finance?
Anyone care to respond to Michael Levini's question? Mr. Provenzano? Thank you.
Hi, Tony Provenzano, Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. As I said in my earlier remarks, ultimately the Board of Selectmen sitting as sewer commissioners set the rate for sewer users. And who those people will be in 2018 and for the 15 years following that, and what their determination will be on what those sewer rates ought to be, and to the extent that they make the commitment that those enterprise fund should stand on its own or should be subsidized by the taxpayer, is something that neither this board can control nor can the town meeting control. So we are in the unfortunate situation, perhaps from your perspective, that we are asking for a borrowing authorization to get this job done without being able to make a firm and binding commitment to you regarding the sharing of the costs. I know I have my own perspective. I know my fellow board members have their perspectives, and sometimes those perspectives align, and sometimes they don't. But the unfortunate thing is, the thing that we would most like today, which would be a firm commitment, I don't believe is available.
Mr. Rubini? Further response, Mr. Rubini? Kenneth Tavares, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, further response.
Just to add to my colleagues' comments, I think there are some things that we really need to put out in the open right now. We have not made any decisions whatsoever because all of the information is not in at this time. There are models that we are going to be asking the finance director to run. Some people think that because of some comments that have been made, that everything's going to be spread out through the entire town. The users are going to get 100% of it. We honestly don't know at this time. I think what will happen after the hearings, the public hearings, more information. We just got yesterday the good news on the rate of 0%, because up until yesterday it was 2%, and that impacts the models dramatically. So what we're trying to do is not to be evasive, but not to rush to the judgment and saying we're going to do this. There's going to be some sort of blending, probably, but also there's a key part to this that is, again, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of it, but one of the models will probably show what happens when the current debt of the plant is paid off, and then you have to go to the 3,300 users and say, well, you know what, you're going to be starting this over again. And that may be one of the models that has to be looked at. The interest rate is unbelievable. I was asked at the break, unbelievable. Where's Matt Territory when I need him? But the interest rate is paramount. We don't know that. The one thing, and I've read every one of the letters that people have sent in comments, and honestly, some of them hurt because you think, I don't think like that. I wouldn't do that. But I understand, and every member of this board does.
30 seconds.
We all understand what the pressure is. And I'm hoping that we're going to be coming with the first hearing that we have this spring, that we're going to be coming with some accurate information. The other thing that scares me about not doing this, not authorizing the vote, is $300,000 a month. And then, remember, we have the state and the federal government that have not been shy about telling us before, if you don't do this, if you don't correct it, we fine you daily. That is another expense we don't want to take.
Do you have more questions, Mr. Meany? How much more time do you need? How much more time? No objection.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Next question would be, are the selectmen or the commissioners prepared to come back to this town meeting to have the apportionment of rates approved by this town meeting for their input?
Anyone care to respond to Mr. Meany? If not, we'll continue with other speakers and then come back. It's Melissa Riggi responding.
Most likely won't be back to fall town meeting with sewer costs. We don't know when those, we need the bids to come back. We won't be doing borrowing at that point yet, so there would be no reason to come back to fall town meeting. And when the selectmen set the sewer rates this year, some probably time in the beginning of May, the sewer rates are going to be set just based on expenses right now, so they'll probably go on the amount from last year. So fall town meeting would be too early to have the debate about what the apportionment would be if there is one.
So the answer to my question is there's no time for the commissioners to come back to this town meeting to approve the apportionment of the rate, correct?
I can't really answer that. So
Thank you.
I think we need that to support the motion. Thank you.
Richard Caproni. We're debating Article 8 of special town meeting. It's coming to you live from Plymouth Rock High School on Saturday, April 2nd. Mr. Caproni.
I'll parrot everybody else thinks. A great job today. Just, it's tough to swallow approving such a large amount of money, $48 million. We don't have the bids. We don't have options. I'd like to know if we just did the slip line, okay, what would that cost, right? And then what does the additional line cost? So much detail is missing that's needed to make a $48 million decision. Also, I have a private sewer system and I make my payments. And everybody else, the people in the enterprise zone, should be willing to do the same thing. And I am going to vote against the article until there's more clarification. I'm sorry we have a Sophie's Choice. I'm sorry we have to pay $300,000 in the meantime, but it's much too premature for this body to represent the entire town, not just the sewer district, to appropriate $48 million when we really don't know what we're appropriating it for. Thank you.
Mark Maslowski, followed by Richard Surkey. Article 8, special town meeting. Welcome, Mr. Maslowski.
I believe my question is to Melissa. Our esteemed colleagues, the selectmen, are hesitant to make a decision based on the fact that they don't have all the information they need. Let me ask you this. What is the drop-dead date, and is it today, to authorize funding? What if this was put off or tabled to town meeting or to a special town meeting? How much time do we have, or is it today is the only shot to do this, to authorize borrowing?
Someone care to respond? Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance, responding to Mark Maslowski on Article 8. Lynn Barrett.
What's going to happen is we've incurred costs so far to date on the bypass situation, the pipe cleaning, the assessment of the old force main, all of those costs. Those costs will be on our balance sheet financial statement at June 30th. Because we're operating under the emergency legislation from the state, whatever that number is at June 30th, we are required to pay that off, basically, or have some other funding mechanism to pay it off by the time we set our tax rate. If we don't have a funding mechanism by the time we set our tax rate, then that cost will be added to the tax bill. And based on my estimate, through June 30th, we probably would have spent over $7 million by that time. So we're talking probably an $800 increase to your tax bill based on those numbers. So a drop dead date would be either today or the fall town meeting, anything prior to setting our tax rate. But I'll remind you that every month it costs us another $300,000 for the bypass. And as far as those homes that are affected from this bypass, I don't know if anyone's driven down those roads, we have a consideration when we go to do our values for fiscal 17 of those homes, because there is a decrease in their value. So that would need to be looked at. If we address this problem and have the bypass eliminated or removed by the summer, then we won't have to probably do that consideration. So I just want to remind you of those things. Also, there was a question earlier regarding the legal recovery. If we recover any funds through legal process, those monies would be used to reduce the debt, reduce what we would be charging to either the sewer ratepayer or through the tax rate. That would go to reduce that. And I just want to be very clear, in my presentation, I referred to a 0% financing for interim financing. You can do interim financing up to 2 years on this project before you actually have to do permanent financing. So the 0% that we just found out about yesterday, the executive board at Massachusetts Clean Water Trust voted last month to decrease that short-term rate of 0.15% to 0%. So, and during that time period, you don't pay any interest, you will not have to pay any principal. So that's why any debt service costs associated with the $48.2 million would not show up in the fiscal 17 budget, and most likely would not show up in the fiscal 18 budget. So when we finally get those numbers, based on the costs associated with the project, based on the bids, and what we ultimately then end up borrowing through Clean Water Trust, those would be the numbers that we present in our budget process that the Advisory and Finance Committee will review and vet. It would go to the Board of Selectmen, it would go to town meeting. Town meeting would vote
30
on those
seconds.
budgets. And then after that is when the Board of Selectmen would set the rates.
Mr. Maslowski.
So to clarify, we have roughly 90 days in which we could take all this new information, as you've just said. Information just came in yesterday, and that's completely changed the scope of what we're looking at.
No, it has not. It has not changed anything. The only thing, the news that was received yesterday was,
Ms. Barrett.
instead of us,
If we just hold, Mr. Maslowski, how much additional time do you need to have your question answered?
I'm fine.
Is that your last question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If no objection, Lynn Barrett will answer the question and move on to the next speaker. Ms. Barrett.
the only thing that changed yesterday was Mr. Moody mentioned earlier in his comments that we would have to come back in the fall to do something regarding the budget on this project. What he was referring to was the short-term interest that we were going to incur, which would have been the 0.15% of whatever we had to interim borrow at the time. We just found out yesterday that we won't have to do that because they voted a 0% interest rate. So that's what I was referring to. So it doesn't change the scope of this article, doesn't change how we would want to authorize to borrow for this project.
Thank you.
Richard Cirque.
If, God forbid, one of us found out today,
Check the microphone, Mr. Odell.
if,
Mic check for Mr. Cirque. Thank you, Mr. Cirque.
if, God forbid, one of us found out today that he or she had cancer of the colon, which, if not operated on, would be fatal within a short period of time, we would not think first of trying to figure out why this happened, or figure out whether someone's to blame for this happening, or try to figure out how we're going to pay for the necessary medical attention that might save our lives. Instead, we'd go to the hospital that could provide the life-saving treatment that we need in order to survive. And that's what this article is.
Jonathan Beater, Director, Department of Public Works, followed by Jay Ferguson and Mark Donahue. Mr. Beater.
Again, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to answer some of the previous speakers' questions. The bypass is a lifeline for us, but at the same time, it's a liability. We are hearing from Mass DOT. We're hearing from a lot of the abutters on the bypass that are, have concerns. They want to know when this is going to end, when the bypass will be removed. So I ask you just to keep that in mind when you make a decision soon. As far as detail and design goes, we've worked with environmental partners. We had a peer review done by Bader. We've had several options. The slip line option was one of them. Just, we did several options. To slip line half the pipe and replace half, we were looking at $29.7 million. Tremendous detail in all these design options. Again, in the beginning of our presentation, we went over the benefits of why we recommended this repair at the $48.2 million, and the biggest piece is that redundant pipe. We presented all of these options to the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Committee of Precinct Chairs. Lots of questions, lots of great dialogue. But again, at the end of the day, we're recommending this complete option. Thank you.
Jay Ferguson, followed by Mark Donahue. Mr. Ferguson.
Jay Ferguson, Precinct 7. I think the gist of the conversation is that the quicker we get this done, the cheaper it'll be. We don't have time to second guess the design that the engineers have provided us. We got into this trouble because we only had the single pipe. It was in an original design plan, from what I understand, to have two pipes. Redundancy in a system like this is crucial. I don't think that the whole town should pay for what downtown benefits from. I believe that the Manomet section of town pays an extra amount of taxes that is spent all downtown, and to add this on top of somebody's cottage tax bill is just downright rude. We need to get this done quickly, but we need to make sure that we pay the bill properly. But it's kind of, right now, a no-brainer. We have to do this. The quicker, the better. Thank you.
Mark Donahue, followed by Richard Neely.
Yes, Mark Donahue, Precinct 9 Chair. I'd just like to see a lot of accountability here. I mean, I live in the Ponds of Plymouth. We don't use water. We don't use sewage, part of Plymouth. But I don't see people that aren't on the system should pay for it, but I also don't want to see my parents who are on the system pay a higher rate. I mean, these rates keep on going up higher and higher. Everybody who's retired or elderly can't keep on paying for this, but if we don't do it, you're looking at $350,000 a month. And you might as well just close town off, and we won't have any tourists. Who pays for all these rates, I'm for it, but I'm against it. Hey, I win either way, but we need to do it, because I feel sorry for those people that live on Westerly Road with pipes in their yard. Nobody's going to buy their house. Thank you.
Before we go to Richard Neely, Mr. Neely presented me with a motion this morning, as did another town meeting member. I can report town meeting. I received many motions before town meeting, and you'll be receiving those motions later today. But as to the two motions this morning related to this article, this particular language was approved by bond counsel in advance. Had I received the motions as late as yesterday, I might have been in touch with bond counsel, but I'm not going to accept the motions. Moreover, part of the reason is that the motions tend to deal with issues that are really going to be the subject matter for a future town meeting. I think Mr. Neely understands that. So had I thought there was a harm in not accepting, I might go further, but we're going to put those motions aside since they're not really directly related to what we're doing today. Mr. Neely.
Yes. Richard Neely, Precinct 15. Realizing that we are not going to come to a decision as to how this is going to be paid, and given the cost of delay on authorizing the borrowing here, it's a no-brainer. You must vote yes for this.
Dale Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dale Weber, Precinct 3. Ladies and gentlemen, town meeting. For disclosure, I'm also an employee representative here in Plymouth. And I know that most of you weren't here, but some of you were back in June of 1997 when I addressed this body from this podium, although we were in a different school at that time. And at that time, I urged the town meeting not to vote for the design, build, operate component of this wastewater system because I gave examples of exactly the scenario that we're facing in Plymouth right now when you replace town employee operation and daily maintenance of a function with a company that is basically driven by profit margins. Litigation will show in the future whether or not neglect of daily operations was part of the failure that we're trying to address here. I believe it will, and I said that in 1997. I'm actually in the process right now of converting the VHS tape that was made for me of that into a CD so that I can share it with you and you can get some popcorn and have a laugh at it. But the issue is this. Right after that, in June of 1997, the town of Plymouth had a referendum question that faced the entire body of the town of Plymouth to support this body's action to enter into this agreement that we're into. I want to stress the fact that this was a town referendum, town-wide. Every precinct voting to support the construction, maintenance, and operation of the wastewater treatment plant. Whether or not you directly benefit from it or not, you all do benefit from it because everybody that has a septic system has it pumped. And when you pump your septic system, it's some of the most difficult wastewater to treat and the most expensive. And where do you think it goes? It goes to the Plymouth wastewater treatment plant for treatment and disposal. So the bottom line comes down to be in 97, the referendum went to the voters of Plymouth and it passed. The entire community voted to build this plant, and now we're looking to make a repair, a costly repair, and I hope the community can come together again, as it did back in 97, and support this initiative. It's a clothespin vote for me, because I think it stinks back then, and I think it stinks now. But I have to vote for it, I have to support it, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Roger Silva. Town meeting has a rule that town meeting members will speak first. I'm inviting Mr. Silva down. He's asked to be heard. Since Mr. Collins and Mr. Shirley have already been heard on this article, you'll be heard after Mr. Silva.
I'd like to move the question.
We do have a procedural motion which takes precedent, Mr. Silva. So before we hear from you, I will ask, the moving of the previous question is to close debate. It is not debatable, but I will ask anyone who still wishes to be heard to please rise to indicate that you wish to be heard. Thank you. We'll now take a vote. I'll take a voice vote on the motion to close debate. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. Motion carries. We are now closing debate on Article 8, and we will take a vote on Article 8, and I'm not going to take a voice vote. We'll go right to the electronic voting. So we'll get ready. Get your handsets ready. We're voting on Article 8, and it is a 2/3 vote under Article 8 of the special town meeting, and we're now ready to vote. Those of you who are watching, you can see the time is counting down. We have 117 of 135 town meeting members voting, 96 having voted in favor, 20 in opposition, 1 abstention. The motion carries by more than 2/3. I also just want to report to town meeting, one town meeting member during the break expressed concern that he had not seen this motion prior to town meeting. I would tell you that as moderator, I do sponsor a town meeting preview prior to every town meeting, and at the preview last week, there were copies of motions available for town meeting members. If you're unable to attend the preview in the future, it's still possible to get motions from Kerry Gillette, who is the secretary from the Advisory and Finance Committee. Article 9, Mr. Moody moves the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 23, Animals. We'll run through the votes again right now. Options technology. And the votes will be scrolled through. And after every electronic vote, if we could ask option technology to scroll the votes for us. For those of you watching, you can see there are 3 at a time. We're showing precincts 1, 2, and 3. Now precincts 4, 5, and 6. Again, a record of the votes will be available. Now showing precincts 7, 8, and 9. We have the green for yes, the red for no, the yellow is abstention, and the white is absent or not voting. We're now showing precincts 10, 11, and 12. And finally, precincts 13, 14, and 15. Again, the vote is available after town meeting.
With the voting, if there's any discrepancies, we'd like to have your name, the number of your device, which is right on the top, the precinct that you're in, and whether you voted yes, no, or abstain. Because if there are any discrepancies, both the town clerk and I will be taking that as a record and then sharing that with OTI. So it's important that you address those 4 issues.
Thank you. That was Brian Alosi, Assistant Town Moderator, who's coordinating the voting with the option technologies and the town clerk. Article 9, Mr. Moody moves the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 23, Animals, by increasing dog license fees and fines as outlined on pages 47 to 50 of the special town meeting report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee. It's a majority vote, Mr. Moody.
The Advisory
Get a voice check, Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 9. Approval of this article would increase dog license fees for neutered dogs from $10 to $15 per year, and for non-neutered dogs from $20 to $25 per year, and increase the fine for owning an unlicensed dog from $50 to $75 per month.
Further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries the majority. Article 10 is withdrawn. There'll be no action. Article 11 is withdrawn. Article 12, Mr. Moody moves the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept a perpetual easement for public way purposes over the property located on Sandwich Road in River Street in Plymouth, Mass, shown as assessors parcel number, and you have it here as on file with the town clerk, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and take all related actions necessary or appropriate to carry out this acquisition. It's a majority roll call. If it's not unanimous, Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 12. Approval of this article would allow the town to obtain an easement for an existing portion of roadway currently located outside of the layout of Bram Hall's Corner. Granting of this easement was a condition of approval for the Bram Hall Village development.
Further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 13 is withdrawn. Article 14, Mr. Moody moves town vote to grant the town manager authority to initiate the municipal aggregation process pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 134, as provided on pages 55 to 57 of the special town meeting report and recommendation of the Advisory and Finance Committee. It's a majority vote, a roll call if it's not unanimous. Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee, on a unanimous vote with one abstention, recommends town meeting approve Article 14. Approval of this article would allow the town to enter into a municipal electricity aggregation effort spearheaded by the Old Colony Planning Council, enabling residents who wish to participate to receive lower electricity supply rates that would be made available based on the volume of residents participating from Plymouth and 6 other southeastern Massachusetts communities. The aggregation program appears to be highly flexible and will provide residents who opt in to save an estimated $68 per year. Residents who are currently in contract for lower cost electricity will be able to opt into the program once their existing contract expires, and residents may opt out of the program at any time without penalty if they determine that another option is a better deal.
Further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. I'll call for the vote one more time before we take a roll call. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. It is not unanimous. We'll now have a roll call. Get your handsets ready. And as soon as options is ready, we will take the vote under Article 14. And we are now voting. And while we are voting, I would just like to announce to those who are watching, during the break, someone asked about when we would reach Article 7, certain motions. Following this article, we have a motion to dissolve and be moving on to the annual town meeting, if that motion passes. Currently, we're voting on Article 14, 114 of 135 town meeting members. First, the vote, 113 voting in favor, 1 in opposition, abstention. Now we'll go and scroll the precincts so that you can check your vote and make sure it's accurate. First, precincts 1, 2, and 3. You'll see the yes is in green, the white is not voting or absent. We're continuing 4, 5, and 6. Following this article, we have a motion to dissolve. Precincts 7, 8, and 9. This is Plymouth Special Town Meeting coming to you live from Plymouth North High School. Precincts 10, 11, and 12. Precincts 13, 14, and 15. And that completes the vote. And at this time, we'll take the motion to dissolve from Mr. Moody. Mr. Withington, please come to a microphone.
I voted in this, and before you dissolve it, I'd like my vote registered. So that's all. I do believe I'm elected to vote and have my vote count. So.
What is your vote, Mr. Withington? Yes, your vote has been registered as a yes. So it is now 1:14, and Ms. Gillette? Mr. Sullivan, did your vote register? John Sullivan, town meeting member, did your vote? What is your vote? What is your vote? It's a yes. Thank you. That'll be 1:15. Thank you. Any further discussion? Yeah. If I could ask the other town meeting members to state your vote. Mr. Hapgood? Yes, on this article or previous article? Thank you. And which article was that, Mr. Hapgood? I'm going to ask the town meeting members if you can state your identify yourself and state your vote. Come down to the microphone and then give it to Options Technology so that we can continue with town meeting. Thank you.
Jeff DeLapp, Precinct 11, and a yes vote.
Yes on Article 14. Thank you. Is there anyone else whose vote was not registered under Article 14? If not, that completes the voting. Yes. Would you please come forward to the microphone and identify yourself and your vote so that we can conclude the voting under Article 14. This is Plymouth Special Town Meeting coming to you live from Plymouth North High School. Thank you.
Susan Wentworth, Precinct 11, and it was yes.
Thank you, Susan, and that's in Article 14. Thank you. Yes, it is. Mr. Withington, a point of order?
Yes, I'd just like to make sure that the glitch is resolved prior to the next vote. Could we have some assurance of that?
I think you have the attention of Options Technologies. The assistant moderator is there working with the representative from the company.
If you put me on hold and play music, I won't appreciate it, Mr. Trifoletti.
I'll sing. Thank you.
I'm glad that I have the attention, and as a point of order, I did use the restroom, so on the last article, I was
Mr. Withington, we're going to proceed with a motion to dissolve. Any further discussion on the motion to dissolve? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion carries. The special town meeting is dissolved at 11 a.m. And we now will resume the annual town meeting, and we will proceed with the articles in order of the warrant, unless we have a motion to change the order. And Article 1 is withdrawn. Article 2, Mr. Moody moves the town vote to receive the reports of several boards, officers, and committees of the town thereon. Mr. Moody?
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 2. Approval of this housekeeping article allows boards and committees to place their reports on file with the town clerk. Most board and committee reports can be found in the annual town report, which you received at the teller's table as you entered.
Betsy Hall, Chair, Open Space Committee. This is Article 2. Following this report, unless there's any other discussion, we'll have a vote to approve the motion, Article 2. Welcome, Betsy Hall, on behalf of the Open Space Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. At the teller's table, you should have received a pamphlet as well as one page from the master plan. And here is what the master plan looks like. I would encourage everyone, perhaps you're a new town meeting member, if you have never read the master plan for the town of Plymouth, it's wonderful. A lot of work went into it, and I think you would benefit, and the town would benefit, if you make yourself known to this document. Today, we are gathered to consider many problems and concerns that are facing our town. However, I would like to take a moment to celebrate one of our greatest assets, the beauty of our town, which gives Plymouth its unique character and brings tourists from around the world, contributing approximately $350 million each year to our local economy. The Open Space Committee was established in 1999 by this town meeting to help educate residents about the importance of preserving open space. In addition, the Open Space Committee assists town meeting at the acquisition of additional land. By protecting open space, we help to preserve the beauty and character of our town. Recently, the Open Space Committee completed its work on a new pamphlet we will distribute throughout the town, and several donors made available over 1,000 copies of this to be distributed at their own cost. So we want to bring attention to the benefits of preserving natural open space. The cover photo represents the beauty and tranquility we all can enjoy when we enter one of these spaces. On the second page of the pamphlet, you will see maps. They were prepared by the Planning Department, and these show the growth we have experienced in Plymouth over the last 40 years. Pretty amazing if you look at that map. The map at the bottom of the page shows the potential for development if all available land was developed. According to Massachusetts Audubon, Massachusetts loses at least 44 acres of woods, fields, and farmlands to residential, commercial, and industrial development each day. And Plymouth continues to be one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Massachusetts, with a growth rate of approximately 9.2%. So why preserve natural open space? The third page of this pamphlet highlights some of the many benefits of natural open space. Although all are very important, there are two that we would like to bring to your attention: protecting our water supply and limiting traffic. First, water supply. At this time, Plymouth's attention is rightly focused on failing sewer lines in the downtown area. However, Plymouth also has over 20,000 septic systems. Each eventually drains into our groundwater. Acquiring open space helps to limit additional septic systems being added to our groundwater. The second benefit we'd like to highlight is helping to limit traffic congestion. Our town is comprised of many narrow, winding roads. As traffic increases, congestion causes frustrating delays, road damage, and air pollution from idling cars and businesses, as well as serious safety issues. The last page of the pamphlet suggests ways that the residents of Plymouth can assist in the preservation of natural open space. The Open Space Committee advocates for smart development as outlined in our master plan that considers ways to balance all the needs of our community. We will be updating our open space and recreation plan in the coming year. This plan is required in order for Plymouth to continue to receive grants for acquiring open space. Plymouth has received hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past through these grants. We will be soliciting comments from residents as we strive to create a community vision and establish new goals of open space as we go forward. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 2? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Article 3. Mr. Moody moves the town vote to establish revolving funds for certain town departments under the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E, 1/2 of the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016, with specific receipts credited to each fund, the purposes for which each fund may be spent, and the maximum amount that may be spent from each fund for fiscal 2017 as follows. And change the spending authority for the Memorial Hall revolving fund from the DPW Director to the Director of Community Resources. And with your motion book, you have the spreadsheets for this particular article. Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 3. Town meeting approval is required to reauthorize and establish revolving funds on an annual basis. Changes to the fiscal year 2017 spending limits are listed on page 31 of the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Further discussion? It's a majority, a roll call if it's not unanimous. Now call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 4. Mr. Moody moves the town vote pursuant to Chapter 173 of the General Bylaws to authorize the Plymouth Center Steering Committee and the Cedarville Steering Committee to continue and review in 3 years at 2019 Annual Town Meeting. Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 4. Town meeting approval of this housekeeping article will authorize the Plymouth Center Steering Committee and the Cedarville Steering Committee to continue with a review in 3 years at the 2019 Annual Town Meeting.
Majority vote. Further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Article 5, we have 2 motions. First, a procedural motion. Mr. Moody moves the town vote to waive the 14-day written report requirement to hear Article 5. A 2/3 vote of the representative town meeting members in attendance is required pursuant to Chapter 2, Section 212(2) of the town charter. It's a 2/3 vote. Mr. Moody.
I have no comments on this motion.
You have no comments on the procedural motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion carries by more than 2/3. Article 5. Mr. Moody moves the town vote to amend the following collective bargaining agreements. And you see the text here for the agreements. It's a majority vote. Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 5. Town meeting approval of this article will accept the collective bargaining agreements with the Plymouth Police Superiors, the Plymouth Police Brotherhood, and the Cobra Department of Public Works Bargaining Unit. The agreements each provide for COLA increases of 2% for fiscal year 2016, the current year, 2.5% for fiscal year 17, and 3% for fiscal year 18, which is consistent with increases granted other bargaining units that have already been approved by town meeting, and which represents the primary financial cost associated with these agreements. In addition to COLA increases, the agreements update certain management and employee rights provisions and benefit provisions. The updated benefit provisions take effect in the second year of the contracts, fiscal year 17, and the annual cost in fiscal year 17 ranges from approximately $31,000 for the 17 members of the Police Superiors Unit to $111,000 for the 91 members of the Police Brotherhood. Benefit provisions updates include, among other things, increases for longevity pay and uniform clothing allowances, which have not been increased in a number of years. Article 5 also includes a one-year rollover agreement for 3 additional COBRA units representing library, dispatchers, and meter enforcement and crossing guard personnel. These rollover agreements require the bargaining units and town management to continue efforts to negotiate a 2-year successor agreement in order to keep all of the town's collective bargaining agreements on a common schedule. The rollover agreement provides a 2% COLA increase to the members of those bargaining units for the current year, which is consistent with that provided to all other bargaining units.
Further discussion? Yes, Mark Donahue.
Yes, Precinct 9, Chair. In our neighborhood where we're sitting up there, evidently we're the troublemakers, we can't find Article 5.
Article 5 in the annual town meeting. It is in the warrant, and it is in the green supplementary book. Thank you. Thank you for the help on that. Please come forward. We're debating Article 5. Yes.
Kevin Lynch, Precinct 13. Could you clarify for me, maybe the audience, TV, who determines when we should use these for our votes and versus a voice vote?
Yes, Mr. Lynch.
Who determines, or what's the process whereby we do not use this, but it goes by voice vote only?
At the start of my remarks, I indicated that there are times when I will use a voice vote. If there's no objection from town meeting, 7 town meeting members can stand and question a voice vote. So at any time that you question a voice vote, you can stand, and if there are 6 other town meeting members that question it, we can then have a counted vote. But I'm the one that determines that, yes.
You're the one that determines that.
It is, yes.
The people, the citizens, will not be able to see how individuals voted by a voice vote.
I determine when there will be a voice vote, and the charter determines certain cases where a roll call vote is required. You also can make a motion to fix the method of voting by roll call vote, and that is a majority vote, and you could make a motion and be heard on it.
For each article as it goes forward?
Excuse me?
For each article, rather than a voice vote, I can make a motion to have it be roll called?
At times when there is no roll call vote required, which you will see in the packet, you certainly, prior to taking the vote, you could make a motion to fix the method of voting by roll call.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Further discussion, Michael Hanlon.
Michael Hanlon, Precinct 15. Is this working? Oh, okay, thanks. Several people have commented to me that, and they've made notice that this is the second town meeting in a row when we've been asked to vote on a collective bargaining agreement with very little notice and very little review. And I don't know about you, but I find that troublesome, that there's not enough time to discuss and deliberate. I mean, we have time to discuss it, but it seems like there's a rush to get these things done, and I find that troublesome. I would like a vote to call for a roll call vote on this article.
The motion to fix the method of voting by roll call. It is a majority vote. I'll ask for a voice vote on whether to fix the main motion by roll call. All those in favor of a roll call vote on this motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. Motion carries. It'll be by roll call vote. Thank you. Would anyone care to respond to Mr. Hanlon's comment regarding the timing for this particular article? Melissa Riggi, Town Manager.
Thank you very much. Collective bargaining can be complicated. It's a process when both parties, management and the labor union, sit at a table, and I think many of you know each side has things that they're looking to change. Typically on the management side, it's something to do with language, and the employees, understandably, are looking for financial issues that would have a financial impact. Now, you always sit down in good faith and try and settle at each and every session, but it doesn't go by the timing working backwards from town meeting like we do on so many other things that we do, like we do with Article 8 requests, like we do with capital requests. We're always working back from either that fall date or the spring. With collective bargaining, you try and get it done when, as soon as both sides can come to that compromise that works. Now, is there sometimes a rush to the finish? There is. In many situations, we're looking to get things done for a town meeting. And there's a jeopardy involved in a potential fear, I think, on part of the employees and certainly on part of the finance director when the cost of living adjustments or anything financial is unknown. So there are times like when you're coming up to a town meeting like this one, when we had a very big financial issue on the table, that also comes into play. I think that both sides realize we need to get these contracts done because we don't know what kind of environment we're going to be looking at in the fall or at the next town meeting. So in this case, I think everybody came to the table a little bit more aggressively in saying, we need to settle this matter. We need to get all the employees. Somebody talked about an economic reopener earlier. We do have economic reopeners in the contracts, and they're there for a reason. They're actually a great management tool, and I think they offer some certainty to the employees. So they know what the cost of living adjustment is going to be town-wide. That's always going to be equal, as often as we can make it. Sometimes there's exceptions if you have to go to the JLMC with certain groups. But for the most part, we try and make our cost and living adjustments the same. But with any other financial benefits or language changes that you're negotiating, you just try and get it done at every single session. And I think that's what you saw happen in this case, and I think you saw it happen back in October. Now we have a couple years before we start. I believe we'll be in negotiations again in about 18 months. And we are hoping the same thing doesn't happen, that both sides try and get a little more aggressive right before town meeting. But it's actually not a bad tool when you're faced with looking at each other in a short period of time to get things done.
Richard Cirque, Precinct 2, on Article 5 of the annual town meeting warrant. Mr. Cirque.
On page 7 of the memorandum of agreement dated March 17, 2016, the following language is being stricken. Letters of reprimand against employees will be subject to review and removal from the employees' official personnel files, provided the employee has had no further infractions occur during the following specified time periods. Letters of verbal reprimand reduced to 1 year, letters of written reprimand 3 years. Okay, this language is being stricken. Okay. All right,
Further comments, Mr. Cirque?
I've answered my own question.
Thank you, Mr. Cirque. Kevin Joyce, town meeting member. We're debating Article 5 of the annual town meeting, coming to you live, Plymouth North High School. Welcome, Kevin Joyce.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have much objection to the article, but I do have an objection, again, as Melissa just mentioned, of timing here. The last 2 weeks, we've been going through 15 different caucuses. I try to attend them all. And I do that so that I can get the most information possible. This information on Article 5 was produced March 30th, last Wednesday. This is the first time I've seen this motion, and now we're going to vote on it. I think what the issue is here is that it's not basically, it hasn't been vetted even in the caucuses. Since March 30th, when this came out, there was one more caucus out of 15. So no one saw this additional information until today. I think there should be a better way of going about this. Not objecting to the contract at all. Just the method of where town meeting member like myself gets this information. I can't review it until this morning. I don't think that's a great system. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to proceed with the vote. It is going to be a roll call vote. And as soon as the light goes on, you can cast your vote on Article 5, the second motion. Yes? This is Article 5. Article 5 of the annual town meeting. and it is the substantive main motion under Article 5. And when the light goes on, you can begin voting. You can now vote, and you'll see on the screen, we're done from 20 seconds, we're voting. This is Plymouth's annual town meeting, coming to you live from Plymouth North High School. We'll be continuing with Article 6, and we would expect to get to Article 7, the budget, before the break for the noon recess. We're currently voting, and you'll see that of 135 town meeting members, 117 have voted, 101 in favor, 12 in opposition, 4 abstentions. The motion carries, and we'll see now who voted for the article and who voted against, beginning with precincts 1, 2, and 3. I didn't want to affect the voting, but Mr. Joyce, I would just like to further remind town meeting that in addition to the caucuses, there was a preview a week ago Thursday prior to March 30th, at which time I did announce that these contracts would be submitted by motion to town meeting, and that was following the motion session that we had the day before. So for future town meetings, the preview is also an opportunity to receive information that may not be available or presented at the caucuses. We're now continuing with precincts 10, 11, and 12, and finally precincts 13, 14, and 15 under Article 5 of the annual town meeting. And at this time, now that you've seen how people have voted, we're going to continue with Article 6. Mr. Moody moves that the town vote pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, to authorize the annual stipends, salaries of elected town officials as follows. And you have the breakdown. It's a majority vote. Mr. Moody? Mic check, please. Mr. Odell? Mr. Moody? John Moody, on behalf of the Advisory and Finance Committee. This is Article 6 of Plymouth's annual town meeting. We're coming to you live from Plymouth North High School in the Center for Performing Arts. Plymouth North High School is located on Aubrey Street, and it is Saturday, April 2nd. We're in the morning session. Mr. Moody.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Article 6. Approval of this article will authorize the annual stipends for the Board of Selectmen and the town moderator. There are no changes to the stipend amounts this year. The chairman of the Board of Selectmen will receive $4,500. The 4 remaining selectmen will each receive $4,000, and the moderator will receive $2,000.
Further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Majority. We'll now move to Article 7. Article 7 is our budget article, and we are going to begin with a presentation from Lynn Barrett, the Director of Finance. I would draw to your attention the supplemental first packet, the yellow cover. When we do go through the budget, we will be looking, beginning on pages 5 through 8. I will go through the various groups. You'll see, for example, on page 5 that we have the administrative services, items 1 through 8, and once we go through that, we then do the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance is the first area in which I have a motion to amend that's been submitted in advance on item 9. I have multiple motions that are in your packet. As we come to each item, we will hear the motion, we will debate it, we will vote it, and then we'll continue with the budget as amended, and at the end, we will vote the various sections, 7A through the other 7 items. Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance, welcome.
Good morning again. I just wanted to make some comments. I don't actually have a slide presentation. I just wanted to maybe point out some highlights of the budget and maybe some things that we're doing that I'd like to let you know about. The general fund budget is an overall increase of approximately 4.7%. It's a fairly modest increase, but it includes really everything that departments needed to provide level services to the town of Plymouth. We referred to in our budget process if a town department needed to, at least on the town side, needed to provide, for them to provide a level service, if they requested new staff to provide that service, we refer to it as a new initiative. So you'll hear that term talked about as you go through the budget line items and the amended motions that are presented. But the new initiatives were really additions to the budget to provide services that were either asked for by the public or by by the public and Board of Selectmen, and for departments to actually perform and get the job done. So I just wanted to make that comment. In the fall, we will be making any kind of adjustments to the budget. For example, we do all of our financing for projects in May for a lot of projects that have been previously voted by town meeting. So we've budgeted some numbers in the budget. We won't know what those actual figures are. So what we do is we always come back in the fall and we'll make adjustments. And usually we decrease the budget because, as you know, I'm a little bit conservative. Other than that, fixed costs, which is a huge part of our budget, I'm happy to say that overall fixed costs have only increased 2.5%. In the past, those costs have increased more significantly, but the town is really trying to make an effort to minimize any increases on some of those fixed costs. A big component of that is last fall, the Board of Selectmen entered into what's called Section 19, negotiating with a public employee committee, and they came to an agreement on contribution rates for health insurance increasing for the employees and changes to the retiree Medicare Part B reimbursement, which are some significant decreases to the budget, or significant savings to the budget, let's put it that way. In the fiscal 17 budget, there's almost $1 million worth of savings due to those changes because of those higher contribution rates and the changes to the Medicare Part B. Going forward, we will continue to see those savings, and they'll be in the millions because the contribution rate is going to increase again for fiscal 19, according to this PEC agreement. The pension assessment is increasing at 7.7%, which is consistent to the annual increase to coincide with the retirement system's plan to fully fund the unfunded liability by the year 2034. The state allows you to go all the way to 2040, but if you were to do that and you had another year like 2008, we would see a huge, significant spike in the pension assessment. So we do approximately an 8% increase every year so that we don't see any of those huge spikes. And it's worked out very well so far. Also, what the retirement system has done is when we do our valuations, we're using our current mortality tables, and we've decreased our investment rate of return to 7.5% from what it was before. An earlier article in the special town meeting warrant, we funded $750,000 to put towards our nuclear plant mitigation fund, and we have a current balance now of $2.9 million. And we are going to make a very strong effort to continue to put money towards that so that we can use it for any type of mitigation when the Entergy plant decides to close. Also, in this budget, we're adding $711,000 to our OPEB trust fund. As you know, we have a significant liability on the OPEB trust fund side. We're not fully funding it, but we are making an effort to deposit funds into a trust fund so that when we are rated by Moody's and S&P, when we go out to borrow, that the town is making efforts. We've adopted the special legislation. We're putting money towards that liability. And then also the changes that we made with the PEC agreement with the employees' contribution rates, that will help to minimize any increase on the liability. Any changes to those other post-employment benefits will only help minimize any increase on the liability. The current balance in our OPEB trust fund is $1.6 million. We also have a stabilization fund balance of $9.2 million. And all these reserves, as I said, will assist the town when we go out to borrow for like Plymouth South High School and to get a really good interest rate and to continue with our very good stable AA bond rating. The town hall project, as you know, is on track, and we have started to incur some interim financing for that project. And I'm happy to say that any monies that are in the budget for the town hall project are being fully funded from the meals tax. So you'll see in the motion for Article 7 that we're transferring money from the meals tax fund to pay for those interest costs. As the town moderator said, the budget that you're going to be voting on is in supplemental number 1, starting on pages 5 through 8. And then also, I just wanted to remind you that earlier the town moderator mentioned the town report. So the finance department's report is in here. We like to include some, at least there's a lot of numbers in there, but there is some good information in there, I think, on historical information. And I've added this year the meals tax fund and the activity that's happening with the meals tax fund. So you'll see that in the town report book. And then also this budget report that was handed out with the town report. This is basically the budget that you vote on, that you're voting on in Article 7. That's what this report is, and this is for fiscal 15, which would have been in the town report. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance. We'll now continue with John Moody, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee.
The Advisory and Finance Committee unanimously recommends town meeting approve Articles 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E, comprising the fiscal year 2017 operating budget of $210,345,124. The Board of Selectmen are in agreement. I think it's also important to point out that as a result of the Board of Selectmen's review, a re-review by the school committee, and the review of the Advisory and Finance Committee, that this number is approximately $1 million less than what was originally presented to the selectmen by the town manager. The reports of the Advisory and Finance Committee's budget subcommittees can be found beginning on page 86 of the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee, and details of each departmental budget can be found in Supplement 1 to the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Thank you, John Moody, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. We'll now be moving through Article 7, the budget. Town meeting members have the Supplement 1 to the report and recommendations. That is the yellow covered booklet. If you turn to page 5, we're going to begin with items 1 through 8, administrative services. Are there any comments or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the next group, Department of Finance, all divisions, items 9 and 10. I have a motion. Mr. Costello, Precinct 10, moves to decrease item 9, Department of Finance, personal services by $48,742. It's a majority vote. Welcome, Mr. Costello.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Alan Costello, Precinct 10. I'm here before you this morning sponsoring a motion to amend line item number 9, the Department of Finance personal services by a total of $48,742. My motivation for this is strictly to curb some of the new initiatives that are proposed this year. I understand that certain town department heads would like these positions or like these monies to fund positions. However, at this time, based on some of the things we've already gone through and that we've yet to see today, I don't feel that this is the time. It's the least evasive motion or action. It's not removing anyone from a present job. It's just not creating a new job. So no one is really impacted on a job basis. I'd like your support on this motion. Thank you very much.
Further discussion on the motion to amend to decrease $48,742.
Mr.
Michael
Moderator.
Hanlon, Mr. Moody, that's right. I said I would recognize you first. Please proceed.
The Advisory and Finance Committee stands by its original budget recommendation and opposes the motion to amend. The motion to amend would eliminate funding for 2 part-time positions, one in the collector's office and one in finance and accounting, that are needed to ensure timely posting of payments and other transactions, maintaining service expectations of taxpayers, deposit of physical cash receipts, financial reconciliations, and tracking and reporting of new Affordable Care Act transactions. Part-time employees are one of the most cost-effective means of providing resources to meet the needs of the town and its departments. And the committee urges town meeting to retain funding for these positions. I'd just like to add on a personal note. At the end of January, I spent almost a full day in the collector's office, watching the posting of cash, the visitation of residents to pay their tax bills. It was a very interesting exercise. The team there in the collector's office works very well together. They are in need of further assistance, which is what this part-time position is intended to do. I think there are some other opportunities, which I spoke of earlier, where technology can be leveraged to make some of that work flow a little more seamlessly. But in the meantime, I think it's really necessary that we fund these part-time positions to make sure that these jobs are done on a timely manner. You don't want to mess with your cash.
Michael Hanlon, Precinct 15.
Thank you. You all received this green book, Proposed Operating Budget. If you look through that book, you will see what Mr. Costello was referring to. There's a series of 15 new initiatives in various departments, all proposing to hire new employees. And I will almost guarantee that every department head here today could stand up and justify those hires. I want to tell you all the reasons why we shouldn't hire those people. And by the way, those 15 proposals for so-called new initiatives will add 18 new full-time employees, 6 part-time employees, and cost $900,000. And that does not count the full-time kindergarten proposed by the school department, which will add 31 new full-time employees. But this is all being proposed at a time when we know the nuclear power plant is going to close. We will lose, I keep saying to everybody, we're going to lose $9.25 million, and some people have corrected me and said, well, maybe we'll lose that and maybe we won't. We know we're going to lose revenue when the treatment plant or when the power plant closes. We just authorized the borrowing of $48 million to repair the sewer force main. They want to build a new police station. There was a proposal on the table that was taken off the table to spend $135 million to repair our roads. There is no shortage of need. We need to do these things. The question is when and who's going to pay for it. In my opinion, this is the wrong time to be doing this, particularly when the power plant's going to close. We don't know what's going to happen. We know it's going to close. We know we're going to lose revenue. Not now, folks. This is not the time to be hiring new employees. And just to point out, we work in a collective bargaining environment that's based on seniority. When you hire somebody and then you have to lay them off, the way the system works is last in, first out. We're going to hire 50 new employees in the coming year. And what's going to happen if we lose that power plant revenue? We may be forced to lay them off because we can't pay for them. So they're not all going to get laid off, but some of them might. So please keep that in mind, not now. Maybe next year.
Robert Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Question through you to the Finance Director. I looked in the town report. I didn't see it. I'm sure that it's someplace reported. Based on the previous speaker's comments around the additional staffing, could you update us on what the current pension unfunded liability is for the town and what's being taken, the steps that are being taken to reduce that unfunded liability?
It's a question from Robert Cunningham. We're debating Article 7, the town budget for 2017. We're going through the items. We are at item 9, which is under the Department of Finance, all divisions, and specifically personal services. We have a motion to amend, actually 2 motions to amend. If, depending on the outcome of this motion, will determine whether or not there is a second motion to amend. This is Plymouth's annual town meeting. It's coming to you live from Plymouth North High School. I received notice from people watching on cable that initially the screen for the electronic voting was difficult to read. I understand the last vote, it was easier to read, and PAC TV is still working on a higher resolution for those of you that are watching at home. It is 20 minutes before 12. We will be taking a recess at approximately 12 noon, at which time we'll return in about 1 hour from when the recess occurs and resume the annual town meeting. Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance.
I apologize for skimming through my papers here, but I do have the pension. The last time the actuary valued our pension was January 1, 2015. The unfunded actuarial liability was $142.3 million. The retirement system makes, the retirement board makes every effort to be very proactive, unlike some other communities in Massachusetts who aren't addressing their funding. They're bumping up against that 2040, and their increases in their pension assessment on an annual basis could be over 2 digits, 12%, 15%. I've heard some of my colleagues say. So, I mean, we've done a really good job. We've paid off our liability from 2008, the losses that we had. We're using current mortality tables and a more reasonable investment rate of return so that we are addressing in town meeting every year has supported us in with our 8% increase to the retirement fund and paying off that liability, which will happen based on current valuation in 2034. Could I also address the motion to amend? Okay, thank you. This particular motion to amend affects the finance department, which is my department. Mr. Costello said that it wouldn't, not adding these people wouldn't impact anybody. And I just have to say that it will definitely, we are already impacted. In my office, which is finance department, accounting, payroll, general ledger, any assistance that I can give to all of you, Department of Revenue, Board of Selectmen, Town Manager, we have 4 people. It's me, my accounting officer, I have a payroll person, and an accounts payable person. Plymouth has grown exponentially, and the amount of work that comes through that office is insurmountable sometimes. And we do a lot, so that half-time position will be very beneficial for our office. As far as the treasurer-collector's office, the half-time position that we're adding there, again, it's because of growth. The volume of activity that goes through that office, as Mr. Moody said, it's crazy. They work very, very, very hard. And having just a part-time person to help out, from 9 until 2 or something like that during the day will be greatly beneficial. Thank you.
Sound check, Mr. Odell. David Malaguti on Article 9.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think it's important to say that any new initiatives that have come before the Board of Selectmen have been thoroughly vetted, and we wouldn't be asking for them if they weren't necessary. I intend to speak on just one of them.
That is the fire department mechanic. We have 37, I believe, pieces of apparatus. We have countless other support apparatus. We have 2 mechanics. Firemen are only as good as the equipment that they operate. Back in January of 2009, Ladder 26 of the Boston Fire Department rolled into a building and Lieutenant Kevin Kelly was killed. The cause of the accident, brake failure due to lack of maintenance. That's in the Mercury report issued to the Boston Fire Department. It's fine to say, not now. You can't do that. You got to take each position and weigh it if you need to. But this is one position we cannot ignore. It is essential.
Further discussion on the motion to amend from Mr. Costello. Again, a sound check. Mr. Odell. Anyone else care to be heard? Mr. Costello, you care to be heard again?
Mr. Murray, just for your own knowledge, you're not being heard through your microphone at this time.
Yes, I believe it can be heard now.
Okay, all right, very good. I'd like to, a couple things. Just quickly, I would like to address the finance director. If my remarks slighted her department, I hope that wasn't the, I was hoping to get across that any new employee or any present employees, or no employees presently would be laid off or impacted. It was only the new initiative, so I apologize for that. The second thing that Mr. Malaguti, I think, is speaking to the next motion, not the one that I have on the floor. And then third, I would like to see if I could, have a matter of procedure, ask that this be a roll call vote.
Typically, on a motion to amend, it would not be, but you certainly can. Would you like to move to have a roll call vote on your motion to amend?
I would like to at this time, yes.
Okay, further discussion on the motion to fix the method of voting by roll call? If not, I'll call for a voice vote on the motion to fix the method of roll call vote on the motion to amend from Mr. Costello. All those in favor of the motion for roll call vote, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. The chair is in doubt. We'll take a roll call vote. And at this time, we'll get ready, and when the light goes on, we will proceed with the vote. This is on a procedural motion. You can now vote. It's a procedural motion. It's a procedural motion on whether or not to have a roll call on the motion to amend. And we have the vote. 79 in favor, 36 in opposition, 0 abstentions. You'll be seeing the scroll, but I think at this point, this is a procedural vote. We'll get to the main motion as to whether or not the main motion on the motion to amend, the substantive motion on the motion to amend. So as soon as we get through the screens on this, we will vote on the motion to amend to reduce item 9 by $48,742, and that vote will also be by electronic voting. This is Plymouth's town meeting. It's coming to you live. We're on the annual town meeting warrant on Article 7, and we have a motion to amend under item 9. And we've completed the review of the procedural vote, and we're now going to go ahead and vote on the motion to amend. This is Mr. Costello's motion to amend. As soon as the light goes on, you can vote whether to decrease item 9 by $48,742. And we're ready to move forward with the vote on this motion under item 9. As soon as the light comes on, and you can now vote. We are continuing. We have 10 more seconds to vote on this motion to amend, and we'll be taking the vote at one moment. And we have 135 town meeting members, Of those 135 town meeting members, 29 voted in favor, 88 voted in opposition. There is one abstention. The motion does not carry, and we have a couple of questions. Yes, point of order.
Mary Byron, Precinct 6. Could you please explain exactly what we were voting on? Because I think I voted incorrectly.
Mary, we just voted on Mr. Casello's motion to amend, and it was defeated. It was the motion to reduce item 9 by $48,742.
I voted incorrectly.
And you would like to change your vote?
Yes.
And how would you like to vote?
No.
You would like to vote no.
Correct.
So we will change your vote from a yes to a no.
Thank you.
Thank you. 28 in favor, 89 in opposition. Come back here. And one abstention. Any further comments? If not, we'll move on to the next motion to amend. Let's now scroll through, if we could, for Options Technology to show the vote, and we're going to now show that. And I'm being reminded by PAC TV that if you do not come to the microphone, the people watching the cable cast cannot hear you. So even if you have a point of order or a question, please move to the microphone so that you can be heard, and the people at home who have been commenting about their inability to hear some of the speakers. There are a number of people who are watching this cable cast live. And again, we're going through the precincts. You'll see here, first, precincts 1, 2, and 3. The red is a no vote, a green a yes. The white is an absence or not voting. A yellow will be an abstention. Following the scrolling of this vote, we will then proceed to the next motion to amend, which is in your packet. And it's a motion from Mr. Caproni on precinct 15, and he moves to decrease item 9, Department of Finance, Personal Services, by $28,047. This will also be a majority vote, and you'll see the precincts 13, 14, and 15. Mr. Caproni, please come forward and speak to your motion to amend.
Again, this is part of an initiative on the part of a small number of town meeting members to get costs under control in the town of Plymouth and to prevent the runaway tax bills that we've been experiencing for the last 5 or 10 years. So we're trying to start on this motion. It's $28,000. It's not much out of a total of $200 million, okay, but it's a savings, and the message we're trying to set and asking people to join us is not now.
John Moody, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee.
The Advisory and Finance Committee stands by its original budget recommendation and opposes the motion to amend. The motion to amend would eliminate funding for a new IT position to be hired in January 2017 that would absorb a variety of IT work, but in particular, it would provide data management and reporting on behalf of the fire department for its records and information. That reporting and data management is currently being performed by Chief Bradley. The position would focus on fire department needs similar to an existing position that already supports the police department. Both of these public safety departments have substantial specialized support, reporting, and data needs. The committee urges town meeting to retain funding for this position.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. No. The motion does not carry. At this time, we have a visitor in the room. I'd like to invite her to come forward. Elizabeth Lane, would you please come forward to the podium down front? For many of you who recognize Elizabeth Lane, she has been serving as town council from Coltman and Page. She did not know that I would be calling upon her And many times at town meeting, when people wanted to speak, I wouldn't let her talk if I was able to answer the question. So, Betsy, it's wonderful to see you. I know you were with us for over 20 years. We're happy to have Mark now, but do you have a few words of wisdom you'd like to share with town meeting?
Jeez. Excuse me, I'm not prepared to make public comments. I have to tell you, I love this town. This is a wonderful town. It has given me great experiences, highs and lows, let's say, all kinds of things. Wonderful people, highly competent employees and officers. It's really been a privilege. I am a big booster of Plymouth any chance I get. I always tell people about the great things they're doing in Plymouth. And it's been my privilege. That's all I can say. I really have appreciated the opportunity, and I just swung by today because I thought I would just say in person to some of the greats here who have been part of this meeting for a long time, some of our really senior representatives who have contributed so much to the town through their actions at town meeting, and I just thought it'd be an opportunity for me to just say, farewell, you're in good hands. I think of you all the time, and I wish you the best of luck. So that's my message, and thank you.
Thank you. An invaluable resource for the town of Plymouth. Thank you, Elizabeth Lane, for your over 20 years of service to the town and town meeting. Thank you very much. And with that, we will take a 1-hour noon recess. This town meeting stands adjourned at 11:55 a.m.